governance in nature, and would like to welcome you all to this meeting. The meeting is arranged, has been, I think as the agenda has been published, but the meeting is arranged as follows, that we're going to deal with the matters that are for approval by this committee, which are matters, agenda items number 1 to number 9, and then we'll deal with the matters that are for recommendation to the ER, which are matters from number 10 to number 14. However, there is a matter that was referred back from the energy regulator, which is at this currently listed as agenda item number 24. We will lift that and deal with that as agenda item number 15, and then thereafter we'll deal with all of the other items for noting as per the agenda. So that is the agenda for those people that might be following. So starting with then agenda item number 5, I'd like to request Mr. Mavuso to introduce the item and hand over to whoever is going to deal with it. Okay. Thanks.
Thank you, Chair. This one will be done by Sbusiso together with the following one at number 6. These are temporary exemption applications, which are quite routine. Sbu, can you please come in and present the submissions?
Thanks, Mr. Mavuso. Good morning, members and colleagues. So the purpose of this submission is to request the ELS to approve a temporary exemption for Mondi's cogeneration plant that is situated at the Richards Bay from complying with clause 3.1.38 of the transmission code.
Mr. Zulu, you are breaking. Mr. Zulu, you are breaking badly. Please reposition yourself. Oh, Mr. Mavuso, please. No, it's not. Mr. Mavuso, can you assist? We have got a very big agenda today. We need to be able to deal with this in 3 minutes. Mr. Mavuso, please assist. Somebody else?
Chair, Mr. Shoza, can you please come in?
Okay, no, thanks. I'll do so. The exemption applied for members is for Mondi to be exempted from complying with the requirements of the grid stability capability. This is to ensure that the units are able to support the network during abnormal conditions, either supporting during low frequency or voltage abnormalities. So as Mr. Mavuso indicated, it's a normal submission. The recommendations are on page 8 of 8. We've got 2 the conditions that are attached to this exemption. If members can just go straight to page 8, the green number, and adopt the recommendation that is sought. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you, Mr. Shozi. Members, you've got a submission before you. It's for an exemption, as an application for an exemption. Any questions, comments? I see no hands. I guess it's a straightforward one. So, members, I'll read the recommendation for the record. Reading into the record, it is recommended that the Electricity Subcommittee approve the temporary exemption for the Mondi Richards Bay cogeneration plant from complying with clause 3.1.3 subsection 8 of the network code as indicated in table 4 below, and approve the conditions for this exemption outlined below applicable for the from COD. The generator must demonstrate through testing and others to the satisfaction of the systems operator and the NSP the generator's current capability in relation to the exempted code requirements, and provide assurance that this capability will be maintained for the duration of the exemption period. Should the generator's non-compliance with the code requirements necessitate the systems operator and NSP to curtail or to disconnect the generator, no deemed energy payments would be claimed for the output that was curtailed or disconnected. The generator must submit quarterly reports to NERSA, and the Grid Code Secretariat on the progress made to achieve compliance. Reports shall be forwarded to NERSA Grid Code team at nersa.org.za and gcm@eskom.co.za. Those are the recommendations. Members, by show of hands, can we then adopt them? Thank you, Mr. Pokula. Thank you, Madam Massetti. Thank you, Mr. Mkhize. Thank you, Mrs. Spear. Thank you, Advocate Sitole. So you've got your decision there. On item 5. Item 6, Mr. Zungu, I don't know whether you have now repositioned yourself. Let's see you try again. If not, we can ask Mr. Shoza to present the matter for you.
Thanks, Mr. Bometa. The purpose of this submission is to request the Electricity Subcommittee to approve the temporary exemption for Eskom transmission from complying with clause 4.1, 5.1e, 5.1f, and 7.18 bullet point number 8 of the metering code. In the past, the energy regulator has approved the same exemption for Eskom, and then at that time, Eskom applied for 78 metering installations, and it only managed to achieve 76 installations. The reasons for this delay was that it discovered during the exemption that the protection scheme before the meters are installed. Then the delays were also caused by COVID because the material didn't arrive on site on time and the contractors were not appointed. Thereafter, it came back to the GCAC to apply for another exemption. Then, Chair, I'll just take you straight to the recommendation and request the Electricity Subcommittee to approve the temporary exemption for Eskom as indicated under recommendation. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Zungu. Members, you've got this one again. It's an exemption application for your approval. Any questions, comments? By show of hands. None. Okay, thank you. Then let's move to the decision that is sought. I was hoping that Mr. Zungu was going to read it into the record. Having not done so, I'll read it to the record. It is recommended that the Electricity Subcommittee approve the temporary exemption of Eskom transmission from complying with clauses 4.1 and 5.1 subsection E, 5.1 subsection F, and 7.1 subsection 8, bullet point 8 of the metering code at the Van der Kloof power station as indicated in table 3 below, and approve the condition for these exemptions outlined below, which are the generator must submit quarterly reports to NERSA and the Grid Code Secretariat on progress made to achieve compliance. The reports shall be forwarded to the NERSA Grid Code Committee at nersa.org.za and gcm@eskom.co.za. By show of hands, members, if we approve. Thank you, Madam Massetti. Thank you, Madam Spear. Thank you, Mr. Mkhize. Thank you, Advocate Sitole, Mr. Pokula. I also support. Thank you, Mr. Pokula. Right, so you've got your decision there. Item number 7, Mr. Mavuso, who's handling this one?
Okay, Chair, these ones are the two ones that are following at the NPAs, and the first one will be presented by Buiso, and then the second one will be presented by Gwen. Thanks very much.
Thank you. Ms. Mabinya, over to you.
Thank you, Chairperson. Good morning, Chairperson, members and colleagues. Chairperson, we've received a 6-year NPA for each of the 5 Glencore smelter operations which are situated in Mpumalanga, Limpopo, and Northwest. Of the 5 Glencore smelters, 4 are supplied by Eskom and they have complied with the long-term framework. One of the 5 smelters, which is the Rustenburg smelter, is supplied by the Rustenburg local municipality, And as a result, this Rustenburg smelter is excluded from the consultation paper as the application came from Eskom. And the exclusion of the Rustenburg smelter is also to allow the municipality to make its own application to NERSA as the actual supplier of the Rustenburg smelter. We are in discussion with the municipality on this issue, and as soon as the application is submitted, then we will expedite the application. The treatment of confidential information, Chairperson, for the four smelters was approved by the FTRM and has been noted by REC on the 28th of June 2023. The indicative timelines outlining the consultation process are also indicated on page 5 of 57. And we therefore request for the ELS chairperson to note the NPA applications for the 4 smelters, to approve the consultation paper for the 4 smelters, and to also approve the indicative timelines outlining the process. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you, Madam. Members, any questions, comments on the request before us? I see no hands. So with that, then members, can I then take you to the decision? And Madam Abinya has done us a favor to actually read those into the record. So members, can I take you to paragraph 12 for the decision? Mr. Pukula, is that voting or you are?
Yes, it is voting.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, so members, if you can vote on item number on paragraph 12. Thank you, Mr. Pukula, Madam Maseti, Mr. Bia, Mr. Mkize, advocates at all. You've got your decision, Madam Abinya. So let's go to item number 8, fairly similar. By the way, you said who's doing this one?
I'm going to do this one as well, Mr. Gumede.
Okay. All right.
Yes. Okay. Thank you, Chairperson. So, Chairperson, at this stage, we are consulting on the 6-year NPA for each of the 6 Samanco.
So there's somebody whose mic is on. There's background noise. Please switch off your mic.
For that chair, we can proceed.
Okay, so as I was saying, at this stage, we are consulting on the 6-year NPA for each of the 6 Samanco smelters, which are situated in Mpumalanga, Limpopo, and Northwest. The application is in line with the framework, and all 6 smelters are Eskom supplied customers. The treatment of confidential information was approved by the FTRM and was also noted by REC on 28 June 2023. The indicative timelines are also outlined on page 5 of 54. Recommendations are on page 7 and 8 of page 54. We therefore ask ELS to please note the application on the NPA for the 6 Samanco smelters, to approve the consultation paper on the 6 Samanco smelters, and to also approve the indicative timelines outlining the consultation process. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you, Madam. Members, any questions, comments on this one? If none, if I can then take you to the decision that is sought, as again has been read into the record, is paragraph 15. By show of hands, members, if we can adopt this. If we can approve that, thank you, Mr. Mkize, thank you, Mr. Pukula, thank you, Madam Swia, thank you, Advocate Sitole, thank you, Madam Aseti. Madam Abinya, you've got your decision. So if we can now go to item, Mr. Pukula, I assume it's a lingering hand. Thank you. May I go to item number 9? Who's presenting this one? Mr. Mavuso.
Oh, this one, Chair, will be done by Tsepo and Maep.
Okay. Mr. Ramkok.
Okay, good day, Chair. It's Mr. Maepu Koboshian.
Oh, okay.
Thank you, Chair. The purpose of this submission is to request the Electricity Subcommittee to approve the transfer of Lijaja Coal Pty Ltd Electricity Distribution Connection Facility License to Namane Generation. The license transfer application is delegated to the Electricity Subcommittee for approval as per delegation matrix. Namane Generation launched an application for request the transfer of the electricity distribution connection license facility to be transferred from Namane to Lijaja, and Lijaja coal license was issued in 2015 by NESA, and the Lijaja coal was placed under provisional liquidation in 2021 July by the High Court, and the Master of the High Court the Master of the High Court appointed Genesis to be a provisional liquidator. During the course of the Lijaja, Namane Generation acquired all the properties and the assets held by the Lijaja. So the application is thus made by Namane Generation together with a Lijaja Coal provisional liquidator request for NESA to approve the license transfer. Chair, the recommendations are on page 5, where we're recommending, and it is recommended that the Electricity Subcommittee approve the transfer of the Lijaja Coal Pty Distribution Connection Facility License with conditions to Namane attached here as Appendix 1 to the reason of decision document. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Koboshiane. Members, you've got the item before you for consideration. Any questions or comments? By show of hands, none. Therefore, we'll take you to the decision that has been read into the record on page 5, recommendations on paragraph 14. Can I see by show of hands, members, if you approve that recommendation? Thank you, Mr. Pokula. Thank you, Madam Maseti. Thank you, Advocacy Tole, Ms. Spear, and who am I missing? Mr. Mkize. Thank you. You've got your decision, Mr. Koboshiane. Thank you. Let's step off these ones. These were the items for approval. Now let's go to the items. Mr. Mkize, is that a lingering hand? Let's go to the items for recommendation, starting with item number 10, which is the application by the NTSA for a transmission license. So it's one of 3 applications that we received from the NTSA. This is one. This one is for the transmission license. If we can, Mr. Mavuso, who's presenting this one?
Okay. Chair, this one will be done by CPU, and then CPU will then ask Mark to come in other areas. Just to say, Chair, this type of application really stretched us because we were, getting into uncharted territory. But SPIWA, what SPIWA will do will just mention the main areas that we have identified. One, this application, this entity is not allowed to trade except for balancing the grid and other associated activities. SPIWA also, just to mention areas that they involve the duration of the license and the relations to the assets, and also there are issues that involve exclusivity, and then other issues that relate to benchmarking, which Mark will touch on. Thanks very much. SPIWA, please, can you come in?
Thank you.
Good morning, Chairperson and the members. The purpose of this submission is to request the Electricity Subcommittee to recommend to the Energy Regulator to approve the issuance of a transmission license to the National Transmission Company, and also to approve the RFD, which is appended as Appendix A, which is found on page 28 up to page 71. And the last recommendation is that the transmission company be allowed to apply for a transmission tariff. Chairperson, we received this application from the National Transmission Company after the unbundling of the Eskom Transmission Division as per the DPE roadmap. And then the issues that are highlighted in the application, one is that the transmission license, the National Transmission Company that is applying for this transmission license intends to operate the transmission network and maintain it. And within the transmission network, the NTC will be owning some assets which are 132 kV and below. And the reason for that is that some of these assets, they form a part of the corridor, power corridor, especially within the Buffalo municipality area. And then at the same time, some of these assets, they are used to connect the international customers, and others, they are used to connect the generation facilities. The issues that we picked up here, Chairperson, is one, it's about the exclusivity of the transmission network, of which we have highlighted it when we assess the license conditions, taking into consideration the Act Section 14. And then on that one, we did mention that there should be no exclusivity for anyone that needs to apply for a transmission and license can apply. And as a result, currently we do have 2 licenses that are in operation, which is the Eskom transmission license and the Montraco license. The other part that we dealt with, it's the part of allowing everyone to have an access to the transmission network, so that if they want to connect their facilities or use the network to transport the energy generated, they should allowed, and the access should be accessible to everyone, and it should not favor Eskom, since NTC is a subsidiary of Eskom Holdings. I will allow Mark to come in, and thank you.
Good morning, everybody, and good morning to everyone on the call. I will be brief, and my role here is to touch on the benchmarking, as was referred to, but put it into context. So as Mr. Kamala has pointed out, there have been some issues that we've highlighted, and I will now briefly outline the assessment framework, and hopefully that will provide clarity as to why the analysis in the documentation looks the way it does and how the recommendations were reached. So I'll outline the framework and use very brief examples along the way so one can see how that framework was applied, and then one can translate that to the documentation. So we followed basically a 4-step process. Firstly, we looked at the policy environment to understand whether we had that policy guidance, and that was clear we did in the DPE's roadmap, which asserts on page 17 that the creation of a transmission entity is envisaged, one which has, and I quote, core functions to act as an unbiased electricity broker. So it was clear we had good guidance in that regard. We then moved to the law, and there we took the legal advisory services input and assessed how the license activity should be addressed and where the law, and here the law is simple, that under Section 13.3, as was pointed out by the chair earlier, transmission is a licensable activity separate from other licensable activities, such as generation, distribution, etc. And also, the definition of transmission in the Act is very clear. It means the conveyance of electricity through a transmission system, excluding trading. As part of this legal assessment, we also obviously assessed that in terms of Section 10, that the application was a lawful or legal application, which it was. Therefore, once we were armed with this understanding of the creation of the transmission entity and its legal status, we then researched international best practice or conventional wisdom in these areas of reform, as I said earlier, also referred to as benchmarking by Mr. Mavuso earlier. And what did this elicit? And here's an example, I'm just now the example of what that was, just pretty quickly, is this elicited a high-level clarity that our trajectory currently closely resembles that assessed by numerous commentators, including the Cambridge Electricity Research Group and the World Bank, that we are moving into a space of a legally separated transmission system operator model as a subsidiary of the incumbent vertically integrated utility. That has developed over the past few decades and has been quite carefully assessed by various commentators I mentioned. In this model, the TSO, which consists of core functions of the transmission operator and the system operator, is aligned with the application that was made by the NTC for the NTC transmission license. With all this evidence, we then translated these three elements, policy, law, and guided by global insights, into the draft license and related license conditions. And there again, you will see there that it's very clear that the four key functions that are outlined is the network service provider, system operator, network developer, and there's an additional element which is discussed, and that is the grid code secretariat. But that is discussed in more detail in the documentation. So I think I'll leave it there and hand back to Mr. Mavuso or Mr. Khumalo.
Thank you, Mark. Chairperson, I will end there, and the recommendations are on P9. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Khumalo. Mr. Mavuso, do you want to add anything before I invite members to for questions or comments?
No, Chair, there's nothing from my side. Thanks.
Oh, all right. Members, the document is before us. It's the application, one of the applications made by the NTC, which is for the transmission license. The document, please ask your questions, or we can take comments. By show of hands, members. Thank you, starting with Madame Spear.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you to the team for the hard work and all the work they put on this document, and thanks to the presenter. As the presenter already said initially, that this is a new area. So everything that they have been dealing with has been challenging for them. But thank you very much for all your hard work. Chair, the two issues that he mentioned that we deliberated on them, I think, I'm not sure whether it was the public hearing or it was also the workshop. I hear that they have looked into the exclusivity matter of the issue of only distribution using the network. But the issue of liquidity, where I'm sitting, it's still left hanging because National Treasury deals with the shareholder, the main shareholder, which is Eskom, but not NTC. The issue of those debts that will be transferred to the NTC and sit there, the question was on, because there was a time limit that was set to say they will actually guarantee up until a certain time. So what happens thereafter? For me, Chair, the issue of liquidity is still a matter that still needs to be looked into and by the team. They might not have an answer now, but it is still a matter for the transmission company going forward to say, beyond the time that has been agreed with Eskom, what is going to happen to the entity when it comes to liquidity, because it will affect the liquidity of the organization and also the solvency of the organization. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Madam. Mr. Mkhize.
Thank you, Chairperson, and thanks to the presenters. Mine, I'd just like to get clarity with regard to excluding trading, whether in case the license is approved and issued, does the license exclude trading, but a trading application can be looked at separately, or the license of itself disallows trading? Just wanted to get that clarity. And then two, the issue of not favoring Eskom generation, and put like that, does it then mean that this is informed by policy, which means in future, in terms of prioritizing Eskom in one way or another because of some policy or government policy decision, is of itself also not necessarily excluded? Just wanted to check on that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mkhize. Advocate Sithole.
Thank you, Chairperson, and thanks to the ELR on their submission and presentation. Chair, I think when one looks at starting with the license, rather we'll move straight to the license conditions. If you look at the license condition, or conditions rather, we make mention of a systems operator, but we also again below that mention it again. So I thought the second wording of systems operator is covered in the first. Maybe, I don't know if the team would consider deleting one of them, but if there's a specific reason why it's done in the manner that it is, I would take that point. And then the second part as well, under license conditions, I thought maybe if we could just specify the relevant act there that talks to the regulator's powers to issue the transmission license. And Chair, the other point that I wanted to highlight is that in terms of the term of the license, it's recommended that it be 20 years. But if you go to page 7 of the issues that were raised by the ER previously, or the committee previously, it says that NERSA is recommending the alignment of the term of the license with the life of the NTC's assets. But we're not specifying in the submission or anywhere in the documentation as to why we have abandoned that, because we end up with a recommendation for 20 years. And the other issue, Chairperson, on page 18 to 19, which seems to indicate that the license also covers the activities of trading and import. I need clarity on that, because we have been given an indication that there will be separate applications for trading and import and export. Chairperson, I think I will stop there in terms of my comments that I want to, or comments or issues of clarity to the team. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Madam. Mr. Pokula.
Thank you, Chairperson. Chairperson, for me to be able to comment on this without knowing what are these other things we are saying about the other applications that we're supposed to consider is difficult and may be unfair, because that's not how we had discussed this in the workshop. That's not how this was going to be presented in this committee. But having said that, I do want to say I support the issuing of the separate licenses. But now we'll be issuing the transmission license and the other 2 licenses that had been applied for. We are not issuing, so I'm not sure what we're saying. I see the research, and the research is guided by how other countries want to do what they want to do in their countries. And here we are guided by what this country wants to do with its entity, and we are guided by the policy and that pronouncement. But so yeah, I see what is being said in the research, and I see the things that are being said. I see still, to me, they have some relevance, but as to what is it that we're going to decide at the end. But now I don't know what we are going to decide at the end, because the 2 other parts of this application are not here, and there are reasons that are understood, but I don't, by those who have withdrawn them or the way that it's been structured. So it's difficult. But what I do want to say, I support the issuing of the transmission license in line with the Act, because that's what the Act wants us to do, issue a license that allows an entity to operate like this. But there are other applications that this entity has put in. So it is rather difficult to not support this, but I think it is this understanding that is introduced by this study that came pretty recently, and it's a report of the World Bank, and I can give you a report of the IFC, which does not have issues on this. So I don't know if the report of the World Bank is really the only report that we should consider. And may I just park there for now?
Thank you, Mr. Pokula. Members, I'm not sure if there are any further questions from members. If not, can I then take you back? And colleagues, if you need some assistance from me, do indicate, but can I hand it back to you, Mr. Mavuso and team, and I may assist at some point. Unless of course, Mr. Mavuso, you'd prefer that I start with the high level guidance and then you guys can fill in the details.
Yes, yeah, people would prefer that, especially from the side of the chair of NESA's questions. I think we need you to just give us a high level response to that. Thanks.
Thank you. I see Advocate Sitole's hand is still up for the follow-up. Sorry, ma'am.
Yes, Chairperson, one last question. I was trying to write on the chat, but I thought maybe to be quicker if you recognize me. The other thing, I think in one of our meetings, I think it was ER Strat Plan, you indicated that all these licenses for the NTCSA need to be finalized by November. I would just to get an indication that we would be able to meet that particular deadline or not. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you. Can I maybe just respond at high level? That if we recall, members, even during the consultation, unfortunately, the public consultation was very limited in the sense that the sense we got, I think, during the public hearings is that it is quite unclear what actually needs to be done. And ordinarily, with these kind of separations, they are guided by policy. And published national policy. And clearly in this particular case, in the absence of any policy coming out of the DMRE, the shareholder document, which is the roadmap as has been indicated, was the guiding document in terms of policy. It is quite clear in that document where, in terms of the trajectory, which direction the entity is intended to go. And I think Mr. Bear had actually quoted a line there, which is the intention is to create the NTCSA as a broker, as an honest broker. And that so the NTCSA itself as a transmission company, but with the inclusion of some of the services that it will provide that at this stage are not licensable, including systems operation. That maybe systems operation in the future may be licensable, but at this stage it is not. And maybe later, even market operation might be licensable, but at this stage it is not. That all of these issues that are about making the NTCSA to be an honest broker, that is, and also operate the transmission, the transmission network. That is what is covered, not just in the documents by the World Bank or whatever benchmarking that we did, but it's actually covered by the policy document, which is the roadmap. That's number one, as Mark has indicated. However, having done all of that as well, we needed to then say, what does the Act actually empower us to do? Firstly, although the applicant may have bundled all three applications as if they are one, our law does not permit that. Our law is very specific, and just to be on the maybe just to read it onto to the record, that our law is very specific, that section 7.1 or 7.2, for instance, that sorry, is it 7.2 or 7.3? But it's 7.2, that we need to actually apply. We need to apply for the three separate licenses, or for the three categories of licenses separately. Section 13, even more specifically, that these need to be considered separately. So in the manner in which these applications were considered, they were considered in accordance with the law that says we need to consider these things separately. Transmission is separate from trading. In fact, if you read the definition of transmission and that of distribution, it explicitly excludes trading, because trading is a separate function, and trading is the defined concept as well. It's not just about buying and selling. It's about buying and selling for commercial activities. So it is so someone can buy and sell to balance the network. That is not prohibited. Someone can import and export power to balance the network. That is not prohibited. But for commercial purposes, that you buy and you sell for gain, that is for profit, that is not, it's something that is specifically excluded in terms of transmission. So hence, even in the consideration of these applications, although they may have been applied for as a bundle, but there are three separate categories of licenses. Now, the issue with the other two, especially trading, it raises its own unique questions that still need to be explored and answered. One that says, for instance, would NTSA as a trader be the same as all other traders that have been granted licenses, or would it be a separate category of trader? There are lots of questions that emanate from that second application called trading that needs to be considered. So the view is one that says, let's take this back and explore all of the underlying issues that are in respect of trading, and be quite clear that in NTCSA, for instance, undertaking trading, does this not go against the gist of it being a broker? Will it be competing with its own customers, or will it be competing with people that is providing a service for? There are lots of questions than answers, hence why they are not here. They were not ready because they need to be consulted on. It's not that they were rejected or anything. It's that in terms of the analysis that has been done, is that it needed, those two need to be explored properly and put in their proper realm in terms of, from definition of trading. Is this really what we would want this particular entity to be involved in? Whether that's driven by the World Bank or not, the question is that what even the shareholder department, is that what they envisaged when they envisaged NTSA? So that is the fundamental question. Now, will this is this application for the NTCSA, if those are not considered, firstly, who continues doing them? They're still under Eskom Holdings. Eskom is actually currently as a trader. It can subcontract activities to whoever that it wants to, if there are a particular set of skills that is looking for a fee. That there's nothing stopping them from doing that. So all we simply say, colleagues, is that we've got this bucket of issues. And even our law is very specific about this. It says these need to be considered separately because they are very different. And it's even worse on this particular one because there are other market participants. So when we decide on these things, we must consider the views of those market participants and also consider what was intended by separating out transmission from Eskom. There must be a fundamental reason why it was done. And the question is, in us then awarding license, would we be advancing those interests or would we be deterring from those interests? So I thought at high level, that is the guidance, in fact, that was given to the team. But the guidance was simple. What does our law say? What does policy say? And then, of course, just to complete the picture, and it should not be deemed as if this decision was made based on what the World Bank was saying or whoever else the analysis that we've done, because there are also lots of examples here, even in the continent. Without even considering that, the point is that was just to complete the picture. But the decision was based primarily on what our law says, what ERA says, and secondly, the decision that is put forward here is predicated on what the roadmap, the only national published policy on this matter. That's the only guiding document that unfortunately we have, that it was based on that. So I don't know, but I can then request the team to actually respond to the specific questions that have been asked. Thanks. Over to you, Mr. Mavus.
Thanks, Chair. Just to guide Spiro, his response. When I look at the response, Chair, that you've given, I think there are just 2 or 3 areas that have not been covered. The first one is the one of the assets, the transfer of assets. We have dealt with this issue and considered, that this entity could be insolvent at establishment, and Spiro will respond to that. There's also the issue of the duration, as denoted in the document. I think the CEO has pointed some areas there that do not seem to gel together. I think Spiro has dealt with the issue of trading, which Mr. Mkhize you asked, and then I think, Chair, yourself. But Spiro, maybe on the 2 ones and the other ones that you have picked up, can you please help us?
Okay, thank you. I will start with Madam Spear's questions regarding the exclusivity. I think Madam Spear was referring to the guidance that we received from the workshop. And the guidance was about the trading license application, where Eskom distribution was the only one that was going to buy electricity from the trader. And then on the transmission network, the exclusivity part is covered, and we have also included in the license conditions that the transmission network operator must not exclude any customer that wants to connect to the transmission network. In terms of the liquidity, I will request Dr. Konjelwayo to assist on this one. But and then I think it will come after I've addressed other issues. Regarding Mr. Mkhize's question, the excluding trading, I think that part is in the definition of transmission, where they state that it's the conveyance of electricity through a transmission power system, excluding trading. So on this one, yes, transmission is just for the conveyance of power, and then hence there's another application for trading. And then on the part of the generators, whether the ones for Eskom will be favored than the others, I think even on the roadmap, the purpose of unbundling Eskom is to eliminate such practices, so that at least the least cost generator must be the ones that are allowed to sell energy to the grid. And then answering Mr. Mem Nomalanga Stole, our CEO, yes, the system operator word appears twice, and we will delete that, and we thank you for picking that one up. And then we'll also specify the electricity regulator on the functions of the energy regulator will specify the Electricity Regulations Act, the clause that speak to that. And then on the term of the license, I will ask Mark to talk about it, since at the workshop, yes, we did receive guidance that the term of the license should be aligned to the PPAs. However, Mark will address the issue of the 15 years. Thank you. And I will ask Bongani to deal with liquidity, or we'll look into it in preparation before the document can come to the energy regulator. Thank you.
Thanks, Chair, through you. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Please proceed.
Yes, thanks. Good morning, Chair. Good morning, members and colleagues. So there was some analysis done on the liquidity of the separate transmission company as an entity on its own. But I see in this version of the RFD, it was not included. So we will try and incorporate that to the version that will go to ER. Apologies for that, Chair. Thanks.
Thank you. Maybe just to add on this, Madam Spear, to indicate that for the next 2 years, the systems, the TSO, the NTCSA is part of the ESCOM MYPD decision. Therefore, it has its own allocation in terms of the MYPD decision. So until the MYPD5 expires in 2025, its revenues are actually covered. But the issue of the NTCSA will need its own independent tariff. And part of that tariff will also have to be an unbundled tariff, so we can clearly see all of the other services that it provides, which currently are not being paid for explicitly. All the ancillary services that it provides, like the balancing, the balancing of the network, and all of the other services that, whether it's provision of inertia, all of the services that are provided by the NTCSA at this stage, they are not separately identified and paid for, and therefore sometimes people, when they look at and when they benchmarking ESCOM's tariffs, for instance, to other tariffs, it's actually an unfair comparison, in the sense those services still need to be paid for. So the idea here is that in the next 2 years, the revenue is guaranteed, but before the next 2 years expires, there needs to be an explicit tariff for NTCSA, and that tariff would be levied on everybody that is transmitting power, and all of the other, and also will actually have to pay for the services, the additional services that the NTCSA would be providing to everybody in the network. So hopefully that will then address the issue. But clearly, Madam Spear, before we actually have that independent tariff for or the separate tariff for NTCSA, I think your question is valid, but it is actually the intention. I'm hoping that question has been addressed. So members, I don't know if you feel there's any question that has not been addressed in the questions that you've posed. But I do want to stress, members, there were 3 separate licenses that were applied for. We're considering one, and the others are not ready to come here, and they will come in due course. That is my request, Chair. Sorry, members. I see the hands are up, starting with yourself, Mr. Pokula.
Thank you, Mr. Kumete. Mr. Kumete, I think when this committee is dealing with these issues, especially when us, the members, are the ones making recommendations to the energy regulator, I think we have a responsibility to have an understanding of what is going to come when and how it is going to come. Right now, I feel very blind in as far as the decisions that we have to make. I don't know when. I know that there's the date of the November for the transmission company to be concluded. I don't know when the trading license is going to come. I don't know when the import-export is going to come. I don't know when the framework that the electricity pricing policy requires us to do. So somewhere along the line, we need to be given a nice dashboard that makes us understand and see where we're going to go to. And secondly, I do have beef around the fact that these matters were discussed in the workshop. And if there were different reasons why they shouldn't have been done, I'm not going to hang on to the fact that they were not discussed in the workshop. But I find it as a big surprise that we have a workshop, we chart the way forward, and when we come to the meeting, we do not have those things that were discussed in the workshop, and it's a completely different. And if for the good reason, yes, I am okay with that. There would always be good reasons for, but I just think that for me as a member of this committee, I'm starting to feel like I'm flying blind, and I am not comfortable with blind flying. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Pokola. Advocate Tole, follow up.
Yes, thanks, Chairperson. Thanks to the team for the responses. I think Mr. Kumale indicated that Mr. Bear will deal with the issue of the license period. As I said, in one part of the submission, we talk about 20 years. In the other, there is a link to the lifespan of the asset of the NTC. And again, in terms of the license condition as well, on page 18 to 19, I did say that it seems to be talking about a trading and import and export. If then that is a mistake that we need to really correct in the same manner as the others in the draft license, let me get an indication that that is an error. It needs to be attended to. And Chairperson, I think as well, maybe we are reading section 7 of the ERA in a different manner. It doesn't say, as far as I'm concerned, that if the application is from one applicant and it's for 3 activities, they should be dealt with separately. That provision doesn't seem to be saying that, and hence my question to say that we could have dealt with all the applications from the NTCSA in a go, because they are linked. There is no specific provision that says they must be dealt with separately if they are from one applicant. Chair, I will stop there and ask that the 2 points that I've mentioned earlier on be responded to by the team. Thank you.
Thank you, Advocate Sitola. Mr. Mkiza.
Thanks, Chairperson, and thanks to the presenters for the responses. I'm happy with the response regarding the matter, the issue of trading, especially with the explanation regarding the buying and selling from the point of view of maintaining grid stability as rendering as a service in this application, not necessarily then preempting decisions on the other applications that are still coming. Hence also me supporting the need to be very categorical around the other applications in terms of the timeframes we're looking at, so that we are clear in terms of us being smart in handling our business.
Chair, I lost Mr. Mkiza half of what he said before this.
Okay. Okay, Mr. Mkiza, do you mind repeating? We did hear him though on our side. Do you mind repeating, Mr. Mkiza? Starting from, you happy with the?
Yes, thanks. I will repeat and say that I'm happy with the responses provided. But just to emphasize that the way I look at how things are crafted on page 18 with regard to the selling and buying, page 19 actually, the buying and selling power in the form of services to maintain grid stability, as that not necessarily talking to trading as we know trading, and also not preempting the decision on the other applications, because we should just be careful that what we have this, then it becomes a standalone, not necessarily go to preempt the decision on the others. But at the same time, my request is let us be categorical in terms of the timelines for the other applications, in line with what also Mr. Pugula had alluded to earlier on. I support that, because we need to have a helicopter view and know exactly when things are going to happen, being smart in the way we conduct business from our side. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mkhize. Before the colleagues respond, can I just correct? Sorry, Advocate, I meant subsection 13. Subsection 13 says those three should be issued separately. I misquoted. Apologies, I misquoted section 7. But it's subsection. It's section 13 of the Act. 13.3 in particular. It is very explicit that NERSA must issue those separate licenses. They are not to be issued as the same. They are not the same. So I sorry if I misled you, but that it is actually it is section 13.3. So do you mind to talk to this issue again of the lifespan of the linking of the license to the lifespan of the NTSA licenses, Mr. Bear? And also to then again just re-emphasize what is on page 19.
Yes, good day again. I think this is one of the areas we have faced a challenge. I'll acknowledge that. We ended up with 20 years. The evidence that was before us in terms of the global evidence was very varied in terms of the duration. Our legal advice was that because the Act says 15 years or at the discretion of the regulator, we can make a discretionary decision, but we need to support that with evidence. The guidance that we got, again, in terms of what would that discretionary element be, it's not stipulated in the Act, and that's there for where we looked at what's been done elsewhere. And one of the things that came through was that because the transmission business here, and here we're talking specifically about the network service provider, the system operator, and the system developer or the network developer, these are fundamentally asset-driven businesses and very expensive assets. So they're very capital-intensive functions that makes the NTSA essentially have a very capital-intensive business model. And that was where a couple of commentators indicated with specific reference to transmission, we should look at linking the term of the license to the recovery of the return on the assets. And at this point, we didn't have a full breakdown of the life cycles of the various assets. And so the amount of 20 years was indicated. But again, here, I think this is probably one of those areas between now and the ER that perhaps we need to enhance with, by adding the evidence that we've got to achieve the recommendation of the 20 years. And perhaps I can leave it at that. I hope I've answered the question as part of that answer is an acknowledgement that this has been a bit of a challenge and that we've tried to make the best we can, but I'm happy to address it further if that's acceptable.
Maybe what I should then we should commit then to say before the matter goes before ER, we will ascertain what is the typical length of the assets that are owned by NTCSA and try to align the duration of the license to that as been analyzed. So it might not be 20 years. So we will verify that and include that decision before we actually go to ER. On the matter around page 19, I think Mr. Mkhize has kind of explained, maybe if I can say this. Trading in the Electricity Regulation Act is a defined concept. It's for commercial activity. Therefore, it recognizes that you can actually still buy and sell power, not for gain, which is that commercial activity. That for this particular part of the license, the NTSA must be enabled to be able to buy, whether it's balancing power in the future or whatever the issue might be. It must be allowed to buy power to balance the network. It might be allowed to import and export power to balance the network, which is what is meant by what is in that paragraph. So those are the powers, but it is quite clear it is not for gain. It is not for commercial activity. It's for the interest of balancing. It's for it to be able to balance the network and to operate the system efficiently. That's what is intended. So if it's not clear, I think we will then expand on it properly. So page 19 is intended exactly that we buy and sell power for the purposes of grid stability and so forth. But if it's not clear, we'll see if we can enhance it. So Mr. Pukola, question raised by Mr. Pukola, we need a dashboard. Yes, we do. It is unfortunate, I think, that with all of the decisions that sit before us, we actually, as NERSA, unfortunately, we deal with applications that come before NERSA. And unfortunately, if we can agree that these applications, if they are related, that we never deal with applications piecemeal. But unfortunately, because we are driven by applications, even whatever comes before us, there will be a particular application with a view that another application will be dealt with, whether in the same meeting or not. But in this particular one, we need to indicate when the other applications need to be dealt with. As indicated, even at the public hearings, there was a concern raised in respect of the trading by people, a key stakeholder out there, Salga, that was opposed to what was applied for in terms of trading, not in terms of transmission. There was a particular request that they were not consulted, so they need to be consulted. Lots of information that has emerged in respect of trading that still needs to be engaged on. Now, does issuing the NTSA with a transmission license to undertake all of these functions, does that mean that the NTSA cannot function? The answer to that is no, because for the purposes for which it is created, the license is what is important for this. It's allowed to do certain things. Yes, can it undertake other additional functions that needs to be reviewed separately? It can, but those are two separate activities which are not related to systems operations. I think that's where we are coming from. But the issue of a dashboard, the point is taken, Mr. Pukula, and it's something that we need to actually look at. But what we have before us is this application. So members, I don't know if there are any further follow-ups on this. The points that have been raised have been noted. If not, then can I then take the members to the decision? It is a recommendation on this one. The team is here to ask that the electricity subcommittee recommends to the energy regulator to approve the National Transmission Company of South Africa's that the National Transmission Company of South Africa be issued with a transmission license and the conditions and license conditions, and to approve the attached reasons for decision for the transmission license with all of the amendments and all of the things that need to be finalized, including the questions as a follow-up, the inclusion of the paragraph that to talk to the issue raised by Madame Spear, and also for the clarification of all of the other issues that might not be clear. With that, members, by show of hands, could we approve the actual recommendation to recommend to ER? Thank you, Mr. Pukula. Thank you, Mr. Mkhize. I see two hands only. Thank you, Advocate. Thank you, Ms. Spear. I also support. Madam Massetti, I know you are not feeling well. Are you voting or not voting, ma'am? If not, would you want to have your not voting to be noted separately? Madam Massetti? Okay, I know she's not feeling well. She has indicated to me that she's not feeling well. But Mr. Kumalo, you've got your decision. Thank you. If you can step off this one and go to agenda item number 11, please.
The next three items. The next three items involve the concurrences, and all of them, they will be presented by Willie. Thanks, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Mkhize Jr.
Thank you, Chair. I will be presenting the first three, which are the programs for new generation.
Apologies. I'm not sure. Sorry to disturb you there. Mr. Mkhize and Madam Spear, are those lingering hands?
Apologies, it was lingering.
Okay, thank you, colleagues. Please proceed, Mr. Mkhize Jr.
No, thank you, Chair. With your permission, Chair, I would like to present the three concurrently, and then we will deal with the fourth one, which is the gas and the standard offer. May I proceed with the three, Chair?
Yes, please do. So they are similar, but we will actually then, when we are coming to decisions, we'll then discuss the global issues together, but we'll then deal with the decisions, each one at a time.
Okay, Chair. No, it's noted. Thank you. Okay, so we take the submissions as read, but we'd just like to highlight that the purpose of this submission is to request the Electricity Subcommittee to recommend the decisions and the reasons for decisions for the three programs which emanate from the Energy Action Plan that the NECOM compiled. So the three programs are the 1,000 megawatt cross-border program, the 800 megawatt emergency procurement program, and lastly, the 2,000 megawatt load shedding reduction program. Now, the purpose of the programs is aimed at increasing energy supply in the immediate term, which is in this year, according to the plan. The Minister required NERSA to concur with these programs so that Eskom can be able to procure from IPPs and also to allow Eskom to buy from entities that produce power locally and also across the borders of South Africa in the SADC. And of course, the overriding priority of government is to add as much new generation capacity to the grid as possible, as quickly as possible, in order to ameliorate load shedding and to get the economy working again. Stakeholders commented on the above programs. It was largely supported by many of the stakeholders, with a few exceptions as outlined in the RFDs. Now, coming to the recommendation, I would like to draw the committee's attention to section 14 of the submissions and recommend that the Electricity Subcommittee recommends to the Energy Regulator to approve the decision to concur with the draft ministerial determinations on the three programs, as well as the final draft reasons for decisions of the document. So, Chair, I don't know if we're going to read the recommendations separately or this will suffice.
No. When we then deal with it with each item, we'll then read the actual decision on to the record. But can I maybe just ask that to expatiate a little bit on what were the key issues that the members that were objecting, what they were, if you can summarize them, what were those issues that they were concerned about, for the benefit of the members?
Okay, Chair, no, with pleasure. One of the first key issues was the fact that the determinations did not highlight the technologies from which these programs will purchase. And that was, of course, understandably because the Minister has not done a pre-survey in terms of what capacities are available out there. But as the program commences, it will be determined what technologies and what capacities are available where. But at this stage, Eskom is just seeking, approval from the Minister to commence with the programs. And then there was also an issue with the programs that emanate from the RP 2019, the fact that the Minister cited other column of Table 5 of the IRP. So the concern was that the minister is using, or rather misusing, Table 5 to, to say that capacities are coming from the RP, whereas Table 5 is exhausted according to the stakeholders that commented. But of course, that was also addressed in a sense that column other of Table 5 has not been exhausted. And so the minister does have that prerogative to still quote that column for the purposes of new generation capacity. So I think those were the main two issues, Mr. Gumede. If I've left anything out, my team is also available to add. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mkhize. I just thought it would be useful for the members to at least get a feel of what were the main concerns. Members, we've got the three submissions before us. They are very similar. They are all Section 34 determination, the concurrence therewith. So if we can maybe just discuss if there are any issues that emanate from all three, then we'll come back to each of the matters and deal with the respective decisions. Any questions, comments, members? Doesn't seem like there are any questions. They seem to be clear enough. Mr. Mkhize, I guess because we've had the public hearings and I think we had a post-hearing on this. So with that, members, can I then take you to each of the decisions that are sought? If we can go back to item 11, as indicated, the recommendation is on paragraph 14. It is recommended that the electricity subcommittee recommend to the energy director to approve the decision to concur with the draft ministerial determination on the 1,000 megawatts from the cross-border power purchase program, and to approve the draft reasons for decisions document. By show of hands, members, if we agree with that. Thank you, Madam Spear. Thank you, Mr. Pukula. Thank you, Madam Maseti. Thank you, Ms. Tole. And thank you, Mr. Mkhize. In the same vein, can I then take you to item 12? Also is paragraph 14, just to read it into the record. It is recommended that the electricity subcommittee recommends the following to the electricity regulator: that the decision to concur with the draft ministerial determination on the procurement of the 2,000 megawatts new generation capacity from load shedding. I think it's meant to say it is that the electricity subcommittee recommends that the energy regulator approves the decision to concur with the draft ministerial determination on the procurement of the 2,000 megawatts new generation capacity from load shedding reduction program, and to also to approve the final draft reasons for decisions. By show of hands, members, if we can approve that. Thank you, Mr. Mkhize, Madam Maseti, Mr. Pukula, Advocate Sithole, and Madam Spear. Thank you. You've got your decision on that one. And item 13, very similar, is also paragraph 14, but it is recommended that this electricity subcommittee recommend to the energy regulator to approve the decision to concur with the draft ministerial determination for the procurement of 800 megawatts from the emergency power procurement program attached here to as Annexure A, and to approve the final draft reasons for decision, the draft reasons for decision document attached here to as Annexure B. By show of hands, members, if you can approve that. And Madam Maseti, thank you. Mr. Pukula, Mr. Mkhize, Advocate Sithole, and Madam Spear, thank you. Mr. Mkhize Jr., you've got your decision. If we can then go back, to item 14. I think Mr. Mavuso, I assume that we may want to talk to the resequenced one, although it is actually fairly similar. Who's presenting this one, Mr. Mavuso?
I thought, Chair, we were going to move 24 to. Can you guide me? Are we talking about the generation license for Ngonyam?
Yes. That is
Okay,
still for
this one-
recommendation. This is still for recommendation. So we'll only lift the other one after this one. Thanks.
Thanks, Chair. This one will be presented by Kabel.
Through you, Chair.
Please proceed, Mr. Jacobs.
Yes, unfortunately, Kabelo cannot present. She has a family emergency, so I will be presenting this item.
Please proceed.
Okay, this is an application for a generation license by Ngonyama Solar PV. And the purpose of the submission is to request that the Electricity Subcommittee recommend to the energy regulator that Ngonyama Solar be granted a license to generate 140 megawatts of power. This is as per the this is as per the delegation authority. This submission is actually late, but this one is part of the application is late, but this application is part of the bid window number 6 that has been approved by the energy regulator last month already. And this came to us on the 20th of March as an application, and it is part of the Independent Power Producer Procurement Program by the DMRE. And during the public participation process, the application did advertise. However, there were no comments and objective for the this application. And Chair, would like to. Sorry, I'm moving between documents here. Yes. So, and I would like to move straight forward to page number 7, Chair, where we request that where we recommend that the subcommittee approve the granting of a license for this application and the PPA tariff of Ngonyama Solar with between Ngonyama Solar and ESCOM, and also to approve the draft decisions and the draft reasons for decision document attached as Appendix B. Thank you, Chair.
Mr. Jacobs, before, just so that we can assure the members, can you maybe just indicate why was this one not part of the pack that was discussed, that was dealt with by ER last month?
Chair, this was I'm not really sure about the details here, but all that I know right now is that it was announced on the, as opposed with others, it was announced on the 3rd of March. If that is possible, I would like to maybe ask Brother Chisido to maybe assist on this one. I do not have details on this.
Mr. Horace's hand is up. If you can assist, Mr. Horan.
Yes, Chair. It was simply because when the department announced this preferred bidders, this one there were some issues that they were dealing with, so it was announced as preferred bidders later on than the other preferred bidders. Thanks, Chair. Thanks.
Thank you for the clarity. Members, any questions on this item? Comments? None. Seems clear again. So can I then take you, members, to the decision that is sought, which has been read into the record by Mr. Jacobs. So it's on paragraph 14, page 7 of 8. Can I see by show of hands, members, if we can recommend this, if we can approve this recommendation to ER? By show of hands, members. Thank you, Mr. Mkiza. Thank you, Madam Spear, Madam Assetti, Advocate Sitole. Mr. Pokula, I'm missing a hand, but we've got your decision, Mr. Jacobs. Now, can we then go back to that item, which in our program is item number 14, as we requested that this item be lifted and be dealt with because it is a recommendation to ER. Can I then take it back to you, Mr. Mavuso, to introduce this one as item 15, it's item 24.
Chair, this one we are giving it to legal to present for us. Thanks. I'm not sure if Mr. Murat is here.
As long as we don't breaching things, because unfortunately this is an RFD. So I think rather legal should support you guys. Can I okay. ask that it be presented by yourselves and then legal can support? Thanks.
Okay, Willile, can you just then take over?
Okay, Mr. Mavuso, thank you, Chair. Chair, this one, as you know, has been presented here previously. We are seeking for again a recommendation for the reasons for decisions on the concurrence with Section 34 ministerial determination for the procurement of 3,000 megawatts of CCGT gas, as well as the 1,000 megawatts standard offer by Eskom. Maybe just a bit of history. This one was here at the end of February for the attention of the members to decide on the information that emanated after the final decision was issued by the ER on the 14th of December. There was an issue with the decision in a sense that a very crucial piece of information in the Generation Regulations Act had been overlooked, and therefore the decision had to be rescinded and a new decision was made. So after the decision was rescinded, we then came up with a new decision as well as a new reason for decision, which is what we are seeking now, the recommendation to the ER. Of course, the new decision is that the two projects be recommended for a concurrence as opposed to what we had said previously. So maybe I will not go through the details of the submission, assuming that the submission has been read. Perhaps just looking at the deliberations on Section 6 of the submission, which says that on 23 February, the ER deliberated on the following recommendations to note the factual and legal analysis regarding the incorrect application of the law and the urgency within which a new decision was required. It was also approved that a court application for the rescission of the ER decision be implemented for the full-time regulator member primarily responsible for the electricity regulation in line with this standing instruction. And also an approval was made for a new decision on the concurrence with aspects within which NESA is mandated. So this is what this submission is addressing, members. Just maybe drawing your attention to Section 14, which is the recommendations. It is recommended that the Electricity Subcommittee recommends to the Energy Regulator to, number one, approve the draft reasons for decision on the concurrence with Section 34 of the Ministerial Determination for the procurement of 3,000 megawatts of the combined cycle gas turbine, as well as the 1,000 megawatt standard offer program by Eskom, and these are attached. And as also to note the court order, which was received on the 25th of April. With that, I thank you, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Murati, would you like to maybe just talk members through the other issues in terms of the court process as well, and also maybe to put context if any is missing. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairperson. Good morning, Chair. Good morning, members. Chair, the Mr. Kize Jr. has properly positioned the context of the submission, that in terms of the National Energy Regulator Act, our decisions must be supported by reasons. that also one finds comfort in the application of PAJA requiring the issuance of the decision supporting an administrative action. Chair, the issue that also comes out is that what we're dealing with, it's not an issue of reinventing the consideration of the determination from the beginning, as if we have just received it from the minister. This was the latter part of it, where in the finalization of the analysis, the decision that was made was in variance with the provisions of the law. And when the decision was made, the decision did not have the reasons for decision. The issue of public consultation, one can talk with comfort that the decision is insulated in that, because the consultation or the information that was shared with stakeholders did not change. The public consultation did take place. All that we were faced with is the correction that needed to be made. And because of the legal principle of functus officio, the energy regulator could not change the decision on its own. It had to approach the court, and Mr. Mkhize touched on the part that we indeed carried out that instruction from the energy regulator and had the court rescinding the decision that was taken in December 2022 to the current decision, that the reasons for decision that is being brought here, it's in line with the requirements of the National Energy Regulator Act. Chair, I think the greater part of the issues in the separation of the procedural fairness and procedural rationality were dealt with when we came to the ER with requesting to approach the courts, and we detailed how they are separate and how this decision, if it is challenged, it will be challenged on its own, not because it has violated any aspects relating to procedural fairness, because that has been satisfied. Stakeholders were given an opportunity to submit their comments on the draft determination. Chairperson, I will sit down. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Murati. So, members, I just thought it's important that we locate this thing properly again to say that, as Mr. Murati is indicating, we're not here for a decision. The decision was indeed made on the 23rd of February. It's just that we didn't have the actual reasons for decision document was not dealt with, and we are here to request the electric subcommittee to then recommend to the energy regulator to then consider now the reasons, the RFD document itself, and to actually approve that. I'm not sure if there are any questions, members. By show of hands. None. Okay. So if there are no questions or comments, members, can I then take you to the decision that is on page 6? It's paragraph 14. It has been read into the record by Mr. Mkhize Jr. So by show of hands, members, if I can see by show of hands, if you approve that we recommend to ER. Thank you, Madam Assetti. Thank you, Mr. Mkhize. Thank you, Madam Spear. Thank you, Advocate Siton, and thank you, Mr. Bokul. Mr. Mavuso, you've got your decision. Now, we change gears to go to matters for noting, which start from the old number 15. Mr. Mavuso, and you've also got a request. Mr. Mavuso? You can unmute yourself.
Yes, Chair, sorry, I was struggling to unmute myself. Chair, firstly, I have sent a request on the charge that I have a flu attack. I want to run to the chemist and then I'll come back. And then I'll delegate it to the responsible HODs to lead the discussions. On this one, Chair, since I'm here, if we are talking about the same number, it's the quarterly report, progress report on action plans for generation compliance. If this is the one, Chair, Chisilo and Khotatso will present this one. Thanks.
Thank you. Mr. Mwanza.
Good morning and thank you, Chair, and the members as well. Chair, the purpose of this submission is to request the Electricity Subcommittee to note the quarterly progress report on the corrective action plan. This issue, Chair, is duly delegated to the ELS. Chair, on the 4th of April 2023, the energy regulator approved the enforcement plan. And one of the important factors of the enforcement plan was to have a quarterly report, and our target was 1 licensee. Chair, we therefore recommend the recommendations as set out in section 9 of the submission. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mwanza. Members, you've got the report. The quarterly report is here for noting. Any comments, questions on it? By show of hands. It's clear enough. Yes, thank you, Madam Spear. Your question, ma'am?
Thank you, Chair. Thank you to the presenter. Chair, just a question. I think I raised it before. I'm not sure if the team are already on it. The issue of dealing with, thank you to the presenter. The issue of dealing with, I use the word loosely, penalties in cases where you are actually not complying with what you committed to comply with. I know that we cannot backdate it, but how do we deal with that going forward? Because in this one, yes, there is now a positive approach, but then what about if ever we have hiccups going forward? Where there is no progress or lack of submission, what are the ramifications for that? Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Madam. Any other questions, members? If none, Mr. Mwanza, supported by, if you require legal to assist, please. Mr. Mwanza.
Thank you, Chair. I was going to request legal to assist me on this one. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Murati, care to assist, sir?
Chair, I missed the question. My apologies.
It's dealing with penalties in the case of non-compliance, but noting that it can't be retrospective. But I guess the question is here: if there's non-compliance with conditions of license, are there penalties that are supposed, and basically how do we deal with that process of penalties? Madam Spear, I hope Ms. Madam Spear actually captured your question well. Madam Spear?
Yes, Chair, they can continue. I think in a nutshell, that's what it talks about. Yeah.
All right. No, thank you. All right. Please assist then, Mr. Murati.
Thank you, Chairperson. The whole issue of penalties is the last stage of corrective action process. In terms of the Electricity Regulation Act, the first part of it is to issue a notice to a licensee that is in violation of the license condition or contravention of the law, to remedy the situation, and such becomes a process that is issued by a tribunal which the energy regulator would have established. And only at the time that the licensee would have failed to comply with the notice to comply that would have been issued by a tribunal, is then that the tribunal will sit and issue a penalty that will be that has a maximum of 2 million rand a day. So it is a lengthy process because it is a quasi-judicial process and the issues of the governance side of it. The establishment of a tribunal where members, because the committee, in terms of the National Energy Regulator Act, such a committee, a tribunal committee, can only be constituted by the members of the energy regulator. So there would be such appointment, that's such designation that would have to be done, and also the issue of impartiality also comes into play. So there are dynamics that are at play before we could even get to the stage of issuing a penalty to a non-compliant licensee. But such part, the last part, Chair, just maybe to highlight, we have also gone to also seek guidance from Treasury in terms of when that penalty has been issued, what happens to the funds? Do they become the funds of the regulator, or do they become funds that needs to be transferred? And we are also still waiting guidance to that effect. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Murati, for the guidance. I hope the question has been answered, Madam Spear. It is a difficult one, by the way, especially if it's a municipality and it's not in compliance, and it's a municipality that is not in compliance with the condition of license, like non-payment of the bulk account. So it does come with its challenges. But thank you. I saw your thumbs up. So members, can I then take you to a decision, unless there's another question or comment, but can I take you to a decision, which is on page 4 of 4, paragraph 9, paragraph 9.1, that the request is for the subcommittee to note the quarterly progress report. By show of hands, members, if you can note. Thank you, Mr. Bukula. Thank you, Madam Spear. Thank you, Madam Aseti, Advocate Sitole, and Mr. Mkize. The report is so noted. Go to item number 16, as requested by Mr. Mavuso. HODs, can you kindly introduce this, or direct who's supposed to introduce it?
Okay, through you, Chair. This will be presented by Mr. Elvis Matikwani.
Okay, please go on, Mr. Matikwani.
Thank you, Chairperson, and good morning, members, management, and staff. The purpose of this submission is to request the Electricity Subcommittee to note the report on the findings of the electricity generation industry compliance audit conducted in the first quarter of 2023-24 financial year, and also approve the posting of the report on the NERSA website after clearing the confidentiality matters with the licensees. NERSA conducted audit in 3 generation facilities in the first quarter, and the list of those facilities are on table 2 of this submission. The audit findings are on the individual reports. The Electricity Subcommittee members are therefore requested to approve the recommendation on section 14 of this submission. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you, Mr. Matikwani. Members, any questions, comments on this one? If none, the report is here for noting as per paragraph 14, and as per paragraph 14 on page 5. And also the request is to approve that the report itself be posted on NERSA website after clearing the confidentiality matters with the licensees. By show of hands, members, if we can approve that. Thank you, Madam Maseti. Thank you, Mr. Bukula. Thank you, Madam Spear. Thank you, Advocate Sitole and Mr. Mkize. Thank you, colleagues. Can we then step off this one, go to item number 17, the transmission audit? Mr. Bukula, your hand is still up, sir? Lingering hand. Thank you. It's a legacy hand. Who's presenting this one?
Chair, this one will be presented by Ms. Zuzeka Njoku.
Okay, Ms. Njoku, if we can proceed, ma'am.
Thank you, Chair. The purpose of the submission is to request the Electricity Subcommittee to note the transmission audit submission for the first quarter of 2023-24 and also note the consolidated report for those compliance audits that were conducted on the main transmission substations. As per the APP, the transmission team is required to complete 10% of its annual target in the first quarter and report to the committee. So during the first quarter in April, we conducted 6 transmission audits, of which 4 of those were new substations that were visiting them for the first time, and 2 were re-audits. And most of the equipment assessed in these substations, they were found to be in a good condition. And the findings that we found, and we listed them in the consolidated report under Table 8, the details findings that were shared and accepted by the licensee, of which we are going to do the corrective action plan on a later stage. With that being said, it is recommended that the Electricity Subcommittee note the transmission audit consolidated report attached as Appendix A. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Joko. Members, you've got the report before you. Any questions? I noticed that the editing of the pages, we've got empty pages, Mr. Joko. So when you do finalize these things, please make sure we don't have these empty pages. Makes it very difficult to read, even the actual decision. So members, any questions on this one? If not, can I then take you to the decision, which is on page 4 of 5. The recommendation is for the Electricity Subcommittee to note the consolidated report as appended. By show of hands, members, if you approve that noting. If you note the report, thank you, Mr. Pokola, Advocate Sitolo, Ms. Spear, Advocate Madam Massetti. I'm missing Mr. Mkize. Thank you, Mr. Mkize. The report is so noted. If we can step off this one, go to report number 18, progress report. Who's presenting this one, Mr. Jacobs?
Chair, this one will be presented by Mr. Mayepo Koboshian.
Okay. Please proceed.
Thank you, Chair. The purpose of this submission is to request the Electricity Subcommittee to note the progress reports on the monitoring of the implementation of the electricity distribution of the corrective action plan conducted in the first quarter of 2023-24 financial year. The Electricity Subcommittee is duly delegated as per section 3.1 and 3.6 of the electricity delegation matrix. It is the recommendation on page 4. The Electricity Subcommittee is requested to note the progress reports on the monitoring of the implementation of the electricity distribution corrective action plan conducted in this first quarter of the 2023-24 financial year. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Koboshian. Members, I see there are 2 hands that are up. Apologies, I didn't note your hands earlier, colleagues. Mr. Pokula, then follows Mr. Mkize. Was it a lingering hand?
Chair, mine was a lingering hand. Thank you.
Right, no, thank you. Mr. Mkize, is yours also a legacy hand?
No, on table 8, I think they've done it well here on table 4. In terms of the corrective action plan and implementation of progress. Do they imply that they're going to be doing that on a quarterly basis? They're going to track it in the next quarter or not? Just wanted the clarification.
Thank you, Mr. Mkize. Mr. Koboshian, do you want to respond to that question?
Sorry, sir, can you please repeat the question? I did get it. Is it on the table 4? I was trying to get quicker to the table. Can you please repeat the question?
Please, Mr. Mkize, can proceed.
No, I was just referring to table 8 there to say that it should be categorical in terms of when are you going to be able to track progress, whether it's in the next quarter or not, rather than to say you are going to look at it later on. Because when I look at this table here, table 4, you've clarified the corrective action plan and implementation of progress, which then augurs well in terms of being smart in the way we're doing business.
I also, before you respond to that, I also see a question from Advocate Sithole.
Yes, Chairperson, and maybe the response is there already. I was just wondering if these audit reports do get shared with the other colleagues, especially in EPT, where we have recently dealt with some of the municipal tariffs, and they do cover issues of maintenance and repairs. What I wanted to check with the team in the licensing section, whether they do share this information such that we can sort of confirm what's being reported or what's audited and what has been submitted as requested information on the EPT side, Chairperson. If I can just get clarity that there is that linkage in terms of the work being done or the work presented to the committee now and what's being done in tariff assessments. Thanks, Chairperson.
Thank you. I see that Ulela wants to respond. I'm assuming you're going to respond to both the questions asked by Mr. Mkiza as well as Advocate Sithole.
Thank you, Chairperson. Good morning, members, and good morning, colleagues. As CEO, we are found wanting when it comes to that. We will improve. We used to do it, but we are not as good in doing it. So I will advise the team that when we have our meeting today, we go back to sharing this with EPT. Normally, we share a report when they request information from it, but I think it's better that every time we have these reports, we send them to the entire team via the HOD. The tracking of the reports, thank you for that compliment, Mr. Mkize. I believe that's what we have to do. In fact, I think we've been doing it previously already. So now that we are impressed with that, we will keep doing it. Thank you.
All right, thank you. I'm hoping, Mr. Mkiza, you have responded. So it's something that they are doing and they will continue doing. With that, members, can I then take you to the decision? The decision is on page 404 of the submission, or the overstamped page 4, paragraph 14, and we are requested to note the progress report on the monitoring. And I think then we can then include that these reports be shared amongst shared explicitly with the EPT. Mr. Kobushian, if you can mute yourself, please, I'd appreciate that. Thank you. That's the decision by show of hands, members. Advocate, is it a voting or is it? I assume you are voting.
Voting, Chair.
Okay, thank you, Advocate Sithole. Madam Seti, Mr. Mkize. Mr. Pokola, are you noting? Okay, the report is so noted. Thank you, Mr. Pokola. You also note the report. Can we then take you to agenda item number 19? Again, it's the reports. Who is taking this one?
Chair, Ms. Bulelwa will be presenting this one.
Thank you. Back to you, ma'am. If we can then talk to this one. Mr. Mkiza, by the way, it's a legacy hand, I assume?
Legacy hand, thank you.
All right, thank you. If you can continue, Ms. Goma, please present.
Thank you again, Chairperson. Good morning again, members and colleagues. This submission, similar to the 3 presented just ahead of this one, is similar because the purpose of the submission is to report on the quarterly report on the work that we've done in the first quarter, which started in April and ending in June. The findings of these are similar to
to the ones we've had in the previous audits over the years. I also want to emphasize that you will remember that in the past we have been sending a consolidated report once per year, but now we have a new request from the APP that we do quarterly reports. So in the first quarter, we have quite a few, but we will have more reports and more work done, especially in the second and the third quarter. The findings are, again, finance related. Most of the electricity businesses are still not ring-fenced. The bulk payment to Eskom is still a challenge, and maintenance plans are not fully implemented. And the reasons we get every day, everywhere, is that they don't have the funds. So I hope when we get to a point where we sit as tribunals, we will come up with a solution for this, because that's all we hear, you know, when we want them to step up and do as the Act and as the license conditions request of them. So I will ask that you look at our recommendation, which is to note this first quarterly report. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam. Members, the report is before you for noting. Any questions, comments? If none, members, can we then note the report as per paragraph 14 by show of hands? Thank you, Mr. Mkhize. Thank you, Advocate Sithole, Madam Maseti, Madam Spear. I also note the report. Thank you. The report is so. Thank you. The report is so noted. So if we can step off this one and then go to the NPAs. Report number 20. Who is taking this one, Mr. Sichotla?
Thanks, Chair Iskwena. I'll present the submission.
Okay, thanks, Ms. Matlo. Please proceed.
Okay. Good morning, Chairperson, members, and colleagues. Before I present the submissions, all figures are confidential and they've been approved by the energy regulator as such. On 22 July 2021, NESA approved Eskom 10-year NPA for Hillside Aluminium Smelter in Richards Bay, Umhlathuze, KwaZulu-Natal. The decision of the energy regulator requires Eskom to submit 6 months report from the effective date of the NPA until the duration of the NPA term to assess whether the intended objectives has been achieved. And on the 21st of May 2023, Eskom submitted the report starting 1 August to 31 January 2023. And page 4 to 5 of the submission shows how the smelter performed against the set targets at the approval stage. And we therefore request the Electricity Subcommittee to note the monitoring report for Hillside Aluminium Smelter in Richards Bay, KwaZulu-Natal. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Ms. Matlo. Members, you've got the report before you. As indicated, the numbers are confidential. Any questions, comments? The report is clear. If it is, thank you, members. So can I then take you to the decision that is sought? We are asked to note the report. So by show of hands, members, if we can note the report. Thank you, Madam Spear. Thank you, Advocate Sithole. Thank you, Madam Maseti, Mr. Kokola, and Mr. Mkhize. The report is so noted. Thank you, Ms. Matlo. The next few decisions, we're just noting the round robins. Members, I'll just ask if there is any person perhaps who has anything to add or object. But other than that, by show of hands, members, if we can note those and confirm those round robin decisions by show of hands. Can we confirm, members, by show of hands? Thank you, Advocate Sithole. Mr. Mabunda, guidance, sorry, apologies, members. Mr. Mabunda wants to guide differently. Mr. Mabunda?
Chair, for the record, it will be proper if we read them out as to what are we noting, the round robin approval.
Oh, yes. Sorry, apologies for that. So apologies, members. Can I first read what those round robins were? and then we can then note them by show of hands. The first one was a round robin, which was requesting a deviation from the revised public hearing rules and notice and comment procedure formulated by NERSA. This serves to confirm that the energy regulator has, in terms of Section 8(9)(b) of the National Energy Regulator Act, approved the above stated round robin on the 12th of May 2023, and 4 members voted: Mr. Gumede, Ms. Maseti, Mr. Mkhize, and Ms. P. So, members, by show of hands, if we can note this one or confirm this approval. Thank you, Mr. Mkhize. Thank you, Madam Maseti. Thank you, Ms. Spear. Thank you, Mr. Pokula, and thank you, Advocate Sitola. This is so noted. And then number 22, this one was a request. This was a round robin approval, a request to request that urgent submissions be handled via round robin, and the five submissions were approved via round robin. The first one was the approval of the publication and noting of the timelines for the processing of the Eskom MYPD4 RCA, which for application for the year 2021-22. The second was for the temporary exemptions of Matla A Bukoni solar PV, Bukamuso solar PV from complying with clauses 16.1 of the grid code for the renewable power plants version 3.1, and Wesley Siskai wind farm for complying with clause 16.5 subsection 6 of the grid code for renewable power plants version 3.1. Thirdly, it was a round robin for approval for round robin approval of the temporary exemption for Mondi South Africa Limited from complying with clause 4.6 of the Information Exchange Code version 10.1 of January 2022. And fourthly, the temporary exemption for Riza Litsatsi Lisedi Solar Capital DR Sishen Molelo DR Molelo Priska solar PV plants, and Cookhouse and Amakhala Emoyeni Kucha Dopa Grass Ridge Noble Fontaine Vinerk wind farms from complying with Appendix 9 of the RPP Grid Code version 3.1 of January 2022. And lastly, for the approval of the generation license applications for the 5 bid window, 6 preferred bidders: Doran Hook PV, Uitumelo Solar PV, Gutwano Solar PV, Esha Usra or Esha Energy Pty Limited, and Clear Energy RF Pty Limited. So if we can confirm those approvals, members, by show of hands. What did I do? By show of hands, members, if we can approve those, if we can note those approvals. Thank you. I see all members have voted on this. Thank you. The matter is so approved. The last one is the approval, is the noting of the approval, it's the noting of the approval by round robin of the municipal guideline increase and tariff benchmarks for 23-24 financial year. And this was approved by round robin by 5 members, Mr. Gumede, Advocate Sitole, Mr. Pokula, Madam Maseti, and Ms. Sibia. By show of hands, members, if we can confirm the approval. Thank you, Mr. Pokula. Thank you, Madam Maseti. Thank you, Ms. Spear. Thank you, Mr. Mkhize, and thank you, Advocate Sitole. We have now confirmed those round robin approvals. I think, members, this brings us to the end because we've dealt with item 23 as agenda item number 15. I think this brings us to the end of the open session of our meeting, and I'd like to thank all the members of the public who may have been following us on all our platforms. We thank you for your patience with us where we have erred. We are human, and we'd like to thank you all and request that the meeting be closed to the public now so we can deal with governance matters. Mr.